The Center for Disease Control does not use the term epidemic lightly. We see that there are more people dying of unintentional overdoses from the use of opioids than are dying from car accidents in the United States. There are over 44 deaths per day.
Silence equals death. We don't want to discuss this in our family living rooms. We don't want to discuss it in our communities and in this nation.
And with my son Brian took his life out of feeling there was something wrong with his character. Why couldn't he not use?
Self-control doesn't emerge out of thin air. If you're not addicted, it's very difficult to understand. How can someone not stop taking the drug when they know that they are going to end up in jail or lose their children or be fired from their work?
There is a genetic predisposition to developing an opioid addiction.
Good homes, bad homes, you're just lucky if you get by without it.
Their brain gets hijacked. No one can think or pray or believe themselves out of what the brain is telling them.
Even though I was very successful business-wise, had a good marriage, raised children, that doesn't mean anything. That was all a front. That opiate had to get into my system no matter what.
Your chemistry is changed. Your dopamine receptors are not the same as someone who is not addicted.
When an opiate-dependent patient is in withdrawal from opiates, their brain is telling them the signal that they're starving to death for drug. They're starving to death for that drug the way I'd be starving to death for air with a plastic bag over my head.
We call it dope sick, and for me it was feeling the inside of my bones screaming.
You're not trying to get high anymore per se, you're just trying to not get sick.
Just like diabetes or hypertension or cardiovascular disease, addiction is a chronic disease. And we treat chronic diseases with medications. These patients can benefit tremendously from medication. I see it in this clinical trials.
I was absolutely addicted. I mean, physically a slave to the bottle of pills. I survived because I had medication-assisted treatment.
We have to use medication to stabilize and help repair the brain chemistry that isn't working properly. But then we also have to put the lifestyle modifications in place in order to make the improvement and the management of that disease sustainable.
Anyone with a drug use disorder is essentially dehumanized. It may be a disease, but it's still your fault. They have to be seen as people with a problem rather than a problem.
This is so more prevalent than anybody knows because it's not talked about it. There's this shame and this stigma.
When somebody has this disorder, they have a negative effect on the lives of 4 other people at least. What I have found in my career, though, is that if we can get somebody help, they have an immediate positive effect on untold numbers of others. Their parents sleep well for the first time, knowing that they're not going to get the call that night that he's overdosed and died.
This is a longer-term chronic illness issue, and you don't solve it just by detoxing someone and then thinking they're all right.
This is not a problem that is going to be solved by more cops on the streets. This is not a problem that is going to be solved by keeping the secret. We need to be talking about intervening, getting people access to treatment, and helping them get their lives back.
We need immediate interventions. At the same time, you need to rely on the development of better tools so you can control and sustain the improvements for longer periods and certainly prevent this from happening again.
Medication, to me, is what gives people a little bit of hope.
As an addiction specialist, I need more tools in my toolbox.
Included in those resources is medications.
Only when the treatment is comprehensive, individualized, and multimodal does it have the best chance of success.
We owe it to each other to treat each other with dignity. And when someone is suffering from a disease, our humanity demands us to go and help them.
If we can make that shift, how we treat this disease and how we view this disease, more people will seek treatment. Fewer people will die, and fewer families will be shattered beyond repair.